What's up, Kim? Good to see you.
What, what's up, Larry? I didn't tell you that is my dad's name. It's a
You
killer
know,
name.
it's a killer name.
It's a killer name. Well, his name is technically Lawrence.
That's my name.
That's yours too.
Yeah.
And he's just celebrating his 75th birthday. So go, Larry.
Go, Larry. You know
Yeah.
what's so funny is the name, so killer name and Larry. I've never heard those in the same sentence, so I appreciate that.
You're very
But
welcome.
the funny thing is I just did a speaking event for a bunch of teenagers, for a bunch of students in
Yeah.
an entrepreneurial program this past Friday. And I told the kids that I was like, yes, my name is Larry, and I think I might be the only person under 70 with my name still. Do you want to hear a really embarrassing and funny, as a woman, you might really appreciate this.
Okay.
But I have a really interesting story about my name and then trying to ask a girl out on a date if you'd like to hear it.
I would love to hear
All
it.
right. So here it goes.
Okay.
The audience has heard this a time or two, but I don't know. I can't remember
First
the last
time
time
for
I
me. First time
first
for me.
time for you. Yeah. So I'm in college. I'm a
Mhm.
freshman in college. And I saw this girl walking around campus for like the first few months. And I was just like, oh my gosh, man, I really want to like talk to that girl. And I just was too scared to talk to her.
Mhm.
And I saw her at a party one night, had a couple cups encouraging me, and I'm like, hey, tonight's the night. I'm going to go talk to her.
Yeah.
So I go up to her, just real genuine. And I'm like, hey, how are you? And she like turned around and she like smiled. And she's like, I'm fine. How are you? And I was like, listen, I said, I've noticed you all over campus and I've really wanted to meet you and I've just never have. And I've
Mhm.
always wanted to meet you. What's your name? And she just like lit up and she's like, that's so funny you say that because I've seen you all over campus and I've been really wanting to meet you. She's like, my name's Heather. What's your name? And I go, my name's Larry. And she goes, what? And I go, what do you, my name's Larry. And she goes, no, it's not. And I go, yeah, it is. And she goes, you're not serious. I go, yeah, I am. I'm named after my dad. And she goes, hun, I'm sorry. This is not going to work for me. And I was like, oh,
They
I go,
told you.
Cam, it gets way better. It gets way better.
Rude.
Oh, this is the next sentence puts rude on a whole new level. So I was like, all right, well, why? And she puts her arm around me and pats me on my shoulder. She goes, hun, I don't know how to tell you this, but your name is just not a bedroom name. And I was like, and her friends were like, oh. And my friends were like, oh my God. And then she just like walked off and all my friends were like, they're like, dude. And I'm like, I think I'm gonna go home now. Like it was brutal.
A
I'll never
bedroom
forget
name.
it.
Like
Yeah.
I don't want to do it because like my dad's name is that. But like, what do
Right.
you mean? Like you can't say like, oh Larry. Like
Yeah,
what?
exactly. Right. Even to this day, like with my wife, who I've been with her we've been married for 21 years. We've got a great relationship. She is literally like my soulmate. We joke about that a lot. I was like, do me and you a favor. Don't say my name. It might bring back memories when we're
In
having
the middle
sex.
of it, yeah, you're gonna think
Yeah.
this
And she'll
stupid.
mess with me every now and again during, and I'm like, no. And she's like, we like laugh about it. So it's kind of funny,
Do
but
you ever get like? Do you ever? I know Larry's already like short for Lawrence, but do you ever get
yeah,
like Lair or anything?
she calls me Lair.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. She
Oh, not
always,
a bedroom
actually,
name.
everybody I know calls me Lair.
Legit never heard that. Like never even. I have to admit, I never even thought of that. Never even thought of like that's not a good bedroom name.
And now you'll never like unhear it now, right? After
I
that
feel like you should have been
ridiculous.
like, "Hun, you won't be screaming Larry. You'll be screaming, oh God!" Like kill yourself.
God, wait, that's what I should have said.
Yeah, 100%.
That's a good one. Dang, that's really good. All right, so Kim, tell me about you. So I like to start out with just some fun questions. You up for that?
Yes, let's do
All
that.
right, cool. I want you to think about how you grew up, and I would love for you to just share with us what was like your favorite thing to do as a kid. It could be a sport, it could be like a hobby or whatever it was, but like what was your go-to?
Okay, so I think around 13, I slipped on frost and got like my first concussion. So I have a shitty memory of like under 13.
Really?
Okay, so it's usually my sister that's like, "Do you remember when we did this thing?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, that was so fun." Like I have the recognition when someone brings up the memories, but if you're like, "What was your favorite thing to do at 6?" I'm like, I don't know. I can't remember. I can only remember details of like like 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 and beyond. So I'm a weird case of like, what was like my favorite thing to do or like favorite memory? All I can remember is just like being so lucky to, my parents had this beautiful property on 32nd Avenue in like what's called White Rock, South Surrey in British Columbia, Canada. And we had a lot, like just under 2 acres. And so one of my memories is like just the smell of like fresh cut grass and just like hanging out in the backyard with my 2 dogs and my sister and friends coming over and parents hosting barbecues and the smell of like fresh sockeye salmon and just like feeling safe. I'm very lucky that I felt very safe as a young child. That's kind of what I remember from like young years.
That's really cool. You said your first concussion. Have you had more than one?
No, I'm pretty sure I've had a lot. Yeah, I actually just had one. Not this Christmas, the Christmas past. We were like a bunch of us were up near Pemberton, which is north of Whistler. So people know like it's going to be all snowy and mountainy. So even further north is even a little bit more snowier. And we did this fun like magical forest walk, like in the snow, all the trees had lights and like it was just so fun. It was like an adventure that you had to go through. But right at the end, it was super icy and we were all like really cautious the whole time because, you know, my boyfriend's brother had like a newborn strapped to him and we were like, let's not let him go down with the baby, right? But then right at the end, I'm just standing there and I picked up my phone to look at something and I just fully like sitcom cartoon slipped. Like both feet just went out in front of me and I just landed on like my tailbone and then bashed my head on the ice. And I was like fully like out of it for a bit. Like I was like like stars kind of thing. And then it really took me so then my partner noticed that I went down and he was like, Kim! And he comes running, he slips, he slides, and then bashes into me. So it's like a double whammy. And he's got already like a not a herniated disc. He's got a bulging disc in his back. Disc. So we were both like broken after that, but I ended up like spending a couple $1,000s on like concussion rehab for that. So yeah, that was the first one when I was a kid. That was just recently, and then a few sport related / car accidents in between.
Wow.
Yeah, totally.
I had no idea. Look at that. Well, let's go back to your childhood. You said you felt this element of just safety.
I did.
Was that a feeling that you got just kind of growing up? Was your family just one of those types of families that like, hey, like we're all together, we're good? And was that feeling just a natural, normal feeling in your home?
I think it was a combination of, yes, feeling safe within the home because mom and dad represented safety and they also demonstrated pretty loving relationship within each other, which I'm really lucky to have experienced. And then I think maybe when I was younger, I would consider myself like an HSP, like super highly sensitive. So pre-social media, like pre even chat rooms, pre-internet, my mind was not exposed to trauma and negativity and violence on TV. And like, I didn't watch horror movies and I chose not to engage in that. So I think for a long time in my childhood, I was in like a pretty safe bubble. So that contributes. Like one was like, wasn't exposed to anything awful as a young girl, little experiences here and there. Little discomforts here and there, and then later on like things like bullying, but like, you know, really truly growing up, I'm very fortunate to have been in like quite a safe net, because really when you look at the statistics, especially in America, and it's been a while since I looked, but I think it's something like 1 in 4, 1 in 5 men are even sexually abused. So like shit's happening to a lot of people, right? And I was so fortunate that I grew up safe.
You know, what's interesting that you mentioned is that your parents were really loving. You got to see this really cool, loving relationship. Mm-hmm. And I did not have that growing up at all.
Yeah.
You know, I came from a pretty chaotic childhood, and the show's not about me, it's about you. But I just want to give some context because the one place where I felt exactly how you felt was actually at my grandma and grandpa's house. And my grandma and grandpa were married for 53 years. My grandfather well, they both just loved each other, to the ends. But my grandfather, he was a blue collar, just really tough man's man. But man, he was very compassionate and empathetic at the same time. But he loved my grandmother, like on purpose and intentionally. And I loved being at their home. And it wasn't actually until, a handful of years ago that same word actually came up when I was describing that environment. I was like, I just felt safe there because I felt like there was a lot of love there.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of connection there.
That's
and I say this a lot on the podcast. I mean, Jessica and I, we've got a great relationship. We've had just a great marriage, and I've got 4 boys. They're 17, 16, I know, right? 10 and 8. And, I very publicly love their mom, like in front of them, meaning like I'm very complimentary. I always tell her, and I'm like, and I'll look at her and be like, boys. And they're like, we know.
I know. Shut
right?
up. Yeah.
Yeah. We know you love her.
Age where it's like, okay, like they're like 17, like they're like interested in girls. And then it's like, hey, mom, dad, like we know what they're doing. Right.
But here's the cool thing. Even a young man, right? Like I said, my 16 and 17-year-old, they both have told us, they're like, we really appreciate that you guys love each other so much because it feels good to be here. That's like their words. And I think that's their way of saying safe, and it feels good, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's so important that I think a lot of people get married and have kids. They'll put the kids first and they'll put the marriage on the back burner. And I think what you just shared was a shining example of like, no, we have to love each other. We have to love each other on purpose, right? Because it's important for the kids to even experience what it's like to have loving parents.
I agree with that. I think a lot of people, moms in particular, a lot of hormones going on when you give birth and you're very connected to your child. And I hear from a lot of my friends that have got kids that are like 5, 6 and under right now. What I hear them say, and almost exactly their words, is like, I'm overstimulated after my kids have climbed all over me or needed my attention, that I feel like, don't touch me. My husband, my partner, don't touch me because I'm overstimulated and touched, which means to me that there maybe need to set a little bit more boundary there with the kids so that they can save some love and physical intimacy for their partner, because their partner needs it. Because how can a guy grapple with having almost all the attention of his partner to then almost having none of it?
Mm-hmm.
It's
hard.
It's not fair, I don't think. Relationships aren't equal, but they should be fair, and that's not fair in my opinion.
I agree, and I can see both sides of it, because I mean, like I said, 4 boys. My wife is just like,
it's a lot of
oh my God, if one other person in this home needs one more thing from me, I might kill somebody, right? Which I get that.
There's a lot of masculine energy in that house. Like, she's a woman. She needs feminine energy too.
I know.
Like, I'm sure she's cleaned the sink out from shaving hairs like 10 million times in her life. And she's probably like, all of you guys can fuck off.
Right. I know. Right.
Right.
I know before we hit record today, I was sharing with you how I found you on Instagram, and I'm always searching up, dynamics around communication, connection, and I follow a lot of really great people, and you popped up one day, and I started watching your videos, and I know like one of your main focuses is men and dating, but I really peeled back the onion layer on a lot of your videos and a lot of your content, and I was like, man, this is gold, and it's gold for our guys, in the audience to hear about. But I'm so curious, how did you even get into doing what you're doing?
Yeah, I feel like the path makes sense, but when I tell the story, people are like, how did you go from working in financial derivatives to coaching men on dating?
Yeah, I didn't know that part.
Yeah. So I grew up in Vancouver, BC, and I graduated high school half a year early, and I was taking university courses back then. And I was like, at that point in my life, from all the experiences I had, I was focused on school. Like, that was my focus at the time. And so I went to actually a technical institute here. I chose to do that over like a big university because I was like, give me the information so I can get out there and like be a kick-ass, badass woman in the corporate world. That was what I wanted to do. So I went to BCIT, I got sales and marketing diploma, and then went on to get a bachelor's degree in business administration. And then I was like, oh, that was a lot of work. I'm tired. I'd like to take a little break. So I booked a one-way ticket to Bangkok, Thailand with one of my best friends. And then I didn't come home for 10 years. So I think I was like, that was a lot of like school and focus. And also I was learning who I was. And I actually felt I had to leave Vancouver to become the Kimberly I am today. So we ended up traveling to Bangkok, Thailand, and then traveling many other Southeast Asian countries. My friend and I ended up splitting at some point in our trip because we had different ideas of what we wanted to do. I went into super crazy party mode. She went into like eat, pray, love. I made tons of connections. And then through my, like, I just want to party and have fun, I met a great friend of mine that is still friends with me today. And she got me an interview many months later in Sydney, Australia, the world's largest interdealer broker. And I put on my glasses and I like looked all like professional and sophisticated, and I got the job. And I ended up working in financial derivatives for 9 years across Sydney, Australia, and Singapore. And that industry is massive, but it's also very male dominated. So my whole career across Australia and all the Aussie boys, oi oi, and then, you know, the men that all the expats as well that worked in Singapore. I literally had like the school of men for like 9 years because that's what was in the office. I traveled with men. I ended up traveling around to places like London and Japan and Hong Kong on business trips with men, with male brokers, going out drinking with men, going on the investment trading floors with men. And I kind of just was like observing men for 9 years. And I observed how these very successful men sucked at relationships. I also sucked at my own relationships because I didn't really know what made a good relationship. Good question. I didn't know what made a good relationship. So I did my best, and it didn't eventuate to what I was really looking for. And so I had this dual aha moment where I started working with a coach initially to support like the career, but all my conversations with this coach had to do with people and relationships. And then I had this aha moment where I was like, what am I doing in finance? I need to be helping people and helping myself. So I quit, and then I did some weird travel and my relationship ended. I came back to Vancouver and I was like, I'm going to be a coach. I'm going to coach women. I'm going to coach women because I'm a woman, and my self-limited belief was like, I can only coach women. I can't coach men. So I went to big coaching programs, started my business, started coaching women, hired a business coach. And he goes, what the fuck are you doing? He goes, the whole life you've worked with men. Why are you now trying to work with women? I went, I don't know. Because I don't think men are going to listen to me. He goes, that's crazy. Get into the male niche. I went, okay, great. I want to help men with their confidence. I want to help them feel better in their lives and their relationships as I want to. And it just morphed into helping men in dating and relationships. And it just made so much sense because the men that I was attracting into my practice weren't saying, hey, I don't really feel confident at work. I don't really feel confident in my family dynamic. They're saying, I don't feel confident with dating or relationships. So that turned into my huge focus. And then all my studies and additional learnings and research and courses and qualifications all started focusing on dating and relationships. And it was tremendously impactful for me personally and for my clients. And that's how I ended up here.
I did not expect to hear all that. So from British Columbia to Thailand to traveling to Australia to the trading floor to coaching women, now coaching men, like it's just unreal. I really want to understand the confidence aspect, because I think that's just not necessarily men, but just human beings in general, confidence, right?
Yeah.
What have you found that is missing, lacking when it comes to someone who's like, I just want to be more confident? What usually needs to be done?
Well, I think, people use that term really loosely. They go like, I don't really feel confident with this. And then the first question I ask is, what part are you struggling with? Like specifically, because some people say like, I don't feel confident because what they really mean is I have really low self-esteem and I don't feel good about myself. And that's one thing. And I work with that. But then when someone says I don't feel confident, I go, well, in what? Because confidence is very much a skill. It's like if I don't feel confident cooking dinners, then I might feel shitty about that. But the way I'm going to improve my confidence is by getting in there and making mistakes and learning. And then all of a sudden I have, like a salmon Wellington. Here you go. Right? Like I've learned how to do this fantastic Gordon Ramsay thing. But that's because I got my butt in there and I practiced. So I think firstly, people misunderstand what confidence means and as it pertains to their own life. So is it that you're struggling with your self-worth and self-esteem, or is it that you are struggling with your self-worth and self-esteem because you don't understand the skill of talking to women or communication or boundaries or how to set up a dating app or how to take a great picture or whatever it might be? So I think it's really getting clarity on what part of your life do you excel at and what part are you not excelling at, so we know what to focus on. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. Have you found some similarities in the men that you've worked with?
Oh yeah. Like now I work with hundreds and hundreds of men on a one-on-one basis, either for a month, if not 6 months. So like really gotten to know a lot of dudes. And when it comes to the single dudes that I work with, what I notice as reoccurring themes, and it's almost every one of them, they struggle in their confidence and their ability to advocate for their needs and desires.
So can I add some context to that? Because I have a question about that.
Yes.
So
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I used to struggle with that as well. And I mean, I think a lot of guys struggle with that one. Mm-hmm. But the thing that always got in my way of asking, for what we call needs, wants, or desire, right? And it can be anything. Like I think a lot of people think of that and they automatically think of something sexual. But it could be anything. Like it could be like, hey, I would really like to go and buy like a few new things for clothes. Is it, like, would you be okay if I took a few $100s or $1,000 to go buy some clothes? Or like a parenting alignment thing, of like, hey, I'd like to do this, this, and this, or my view on this is this, this, or this. Or it could be in the bedroom, or it could be a need you have in the relationship. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of us, we hesitate, we stop, because there's a couple things that run throughout the hamster wheel of our mind. One being, well, if she says no, then she's saying, like, I think a lot of us take that very personally, when in actuality, she might be saying no to the thing. She's not saying no to you. Yeah. Right. So it's like that super high fear of rejection. Mm-hmm. The other one too is like, well, I don't want to sound needy, or I don't want to sound weak, or I don't want to have to ask for this, because then what does that say about me? Right. Mm-hmm. But, so I'm sure you hear that. Do you hear that and then more?
Oh, absolutely. It's like,
what else do you hear?
Well, firstly, sometimes it's, I don't really know what I want, or I don't really know how to ask for it, or I'm afraid that I'm going to be perceived as weak, insecure, or needy, or, needing too much, or like overwhelming for this person. Or I don't want to hurt her feelings. That's a big one. Like, God, I really want to go fishing with my buddy on Saturday, but like, I know she wanted to do brunch. So like, I'll just not go with my buddy, and I won't even ask her, and then I'll kind of be grumpy at that brunch. It's like, no, you deserve to have alone time, and she'll deal with it. Like, you need to let her know what's important to you. And so I think maybe the underlying issue under some of this is that some men, some women too, most people actually, don't really know what makes their life super satisfying. Because it's our responsibility as an individual to know what lights us on fire, what our purpose is, what our values are, what we like doing, what makes us exciting, what we love and don't love, so that we can educate our partners on who we are. So sometimes men, it's, yes, I don't want to hurt her feelings by asking for this, or, I don't want to, become a little this or a little that. But also sometimes it's because some of these men are not really sure even what they need in the first place.
How do we figure that out? How do we figure out exactly? Because I agree with you. I think if I even look back on earlier points in our relationship, like there were times where it's just like, here's the funny thing, and I'm sure you probably have heard this. All I know is I don't want what I have right now.
Yeah.
But I'm not exactly sure what I do want. I think I kind of know, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Are there ways that you help your clients go through maybe a thought process of really understanding what it is that they want? And if so, what is it?
Sure. And well, one of the easy ways to do that is write out a list of all the things you don't want and then flip that into the positive. Right? Like, because most of us go through like dating or relationship experiences that end, and then, they then hire a dating coach, and then we get on my first consultation and I go like, what are the pain points basically? And they're like, those frickin' roll off their tongue. They know all the shit they don't like and don't want. And then I go, okay, so what do you want? And they're like, well, not all that. And I go, okay, so what does that look like? Paint me a picture. What does it feel? So yes, there's many deep questions and exercises and explorations we can do to get that visualization. And one of those exercises I do that I created is called Design Your Dream Partner and Relationship. And it specifically starts to ask like, what do you feel like when you're with your partner? What are some of the emotions you feel when you're just chilling at home with your partner? Like, what kind of emotions do you want to be feeling? What kind of activities do you really want to do with your partner? What kind of conversations do you want to have? What are your ideas for parenting? What are your ideas for travel and leisure? So it's like we start to flip the mind from what I don't want to what would make my relationship feel satisfying to me. And then we start to get the clarity on, hey, this is the shit that I need and desire and want in my relationship. So now when I get out there and date and I meet a woman who's super attractive but says she doesn't like all these things that I want, sorry, you're really pretty, but I need to go find someone that I find attractive and has some of these things, because that's what's needed to be satisfied in my relationship. And that list might actually look like, it's really meaningful for me when my wife greets me at the door after a long day of work. Just that. Just get up from whatever you're doing and acknowledge I exist. It could be that, right?
Yeah.
Right? Because that's like missed connection a lot of the time. Or maybe guys realize, what's really meaningful for me? I just love it when we sit and play a stupid little card game together. And we have a glass of wine on the porch, the patio, or the deck, or wherever you live and whatever you call it, right? And it's like those little, let's get the granular detail of the experiences that light you up as an individual, because that's what you're really seeking from a relation. It's those little moments, not the big ass things. Not how, sure, the holidays and all that too, but not like how often do we go on a huge expensive holiday, but because a good relationship is made up of the little exciting moments, those little things that keep you loving and choosing your partner every day, not the one-off big trip you take each year or the huge bouquet of flowers you get on Valentine's. It's the little shit. It's like, are you goofing off in the grocery store? Are you having fun in the kitchen when you're making dinner? Does your partner bring you a glass of water at night when you're thirsty? It's the little things. Do you know what the little things are that you need to feel satisfied? So we paint that picture as the granular and then the wider view.
I love that because obviously you probably know who John Gottman is, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's got this video on YouTube called The Emotional Bank Account. And he talks about the deposits and the withdrawals. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yes.
And, he talks about this ratio of 5-to-1, five deposits for one withdrawal. But in that video, and I think the video is only like a minute and 40 seconds long, but he talks about the small deposits actually go further and they're more meaningful than the once in a blue moon big thing. And in that cartoon, because it's like an animated video, it's got this guy and this girl sitting next to each other on a park bench, and a plane flies by, and he's got like, "I love you so much,"
right.
like the big grand gesture. Yeah. But yeah, I agree. It is definitely those small things.
Because realistically, if you want to spend your life with someone, there is so much mundane in that. Right? Like social media is one very cherry picked dimension of people's lives, but we all have 24 hours a day. We're working, we're going to the bathroom, we're showering, we're making meals, we're tidying the kitchen, we're walking the dog, we're taking out the trash. There's so much mundane. So if you and your partner don't know how to experience some fun or playfulness or enjoyment in the mundane, it's like, ew, Ooh, that's tough, right?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
So wait, you're telling me that your entire life is not like your Instagram, which is the perfect lighting and your videos and all that stuff? Like that's not every minute of every day? I thought it was.
I know. And even on my Instagram, I'm not like overly personal either, because my partner has told me from day one that he does not want to be some dating relationship coach's boyfriend poster boy. And like, he does not want to be on my account. And I respect him. And so he's not on there. So people see like the odd post of me and my dog, or maybe my girlfriend and I, or the occasional family story I'll throw up. But I'm mostly business up front, I think. Maybe it's from the 10 years in like finance, where I've like learned to just like walk on that trading floor and be like, yeah, you don't fuck with me, because like I might have big hair, but I have sharp heels and I'm taller than most all you Japanese traders. So like, I don't know, but don't fuck with me kind of thing. So like, I think like that side of Kimberly, like I'm like playful and fun on my videos, sitting in my living room with my little, usually natural light or my ring light. And let's be honest, guys. Yeah, I use a little blurring filter. Come fuck on. I don't change the structure of my face, but I don't spend too much time getting ready for that stuff. I'm not gonna lie. So yeah,
No,
that's old Kimbo that you get on there.
I got it. That's good. Good to know.
Yeah.
By the way, I want to recap one thing that you said there as well, which is when we're constantly looking for something that we don't want, right?
Yeah.
We're still not necessarily clear on what we do want.
No.
So like, for instance, before we hit record today, what I asked you was, if we were celebrating the things that you truly want to talk about in this podcast, what would you be telling me that we talked about? And I think that, I mean, in your opinion, I mean, should we go about our relationships the same way? Like, hey, like, let's focus on the things that we do want and the things that we can maybe create together.
Absolutely.
Versus like fighting about the thing that we don't want.
Here's the thing, and I think Gottman talks about this too. When you choose to commit to a partner, you are dealing with perpetual problems. So problems that will exist throughout your entire relationship. Those could be little personality flickers or like little habits of a person that like they are not changing. Right? So there's perpetual issues, and then there's solvable problems. But a lot of people do focus on nagging about the perpetual problems, the things that aren't going anywhere, the things that you well knew when you decided to marry or date or commit to this person, that those were their imperfect qualities, right? And like now, 10 years later, you're just gonna go out for a drink with your girlfriend and rag on all the imperfections and disregard all the awesome shit this guy does do for you. Well, our energy goes where we focus, or our focus flows where our energy goes. So it's like, if you want to focus on the shitty stuff about your partner, your relationship is going to feel shitty. And I'm not talking about abuse or like, things that
Sure.
like are just like, get out of there for your own safety. But I'm talking about the little things, like, the quirks or the imperfect bits of our partner. It's like, you think my partner's perfect? You think I'm perfect? Heck no. But if Andrew focused only on the stuff I'm not good at, we wouldn't even be together today because I am not perfect and I do a bunch of annoying stuff that bothers him all the time. But I do more of the stuff he loves, which is why he's still here. And he does way more of the stuff that I don't love. So that's why I'm still here. So you have to, and Gottman talks about this too, and most relationship coaches do, it's like you got to focus on the gratitude for your partner. What are the things that they do that you absolutely adore and love about them? Because when you focus on that, you get more of that, right? You get more.
Yeah, what we focus on grows.
Exactly.
What we focus on expands.
Yeah, which is why for single men dating, do not date without knowing what you want. I say it's the spaghetti method. That is like throwing spaghetti at a wall and seeing what sticks, and you have really no idea what's coming. Because if all you're focusing on is what you didn't like in your past relationships, well, you're going to continue to get that experience. We can dive into the imago theory. We can dive into the fact that, if you don't know what you want, then that's not going to manifest for you. But if you know you don't want critical women, then you're going to continue to date critical women, right? So you got to know, you got to start with clarity. That's all.
I love that.
Yeah.
What about communication? I mean, obviously, men and women, we we communicate differently. Not saying either one is right nor wrong. It's just, we just do it. We communicate differently. From a woman's perspective, what does ideal communication truly look like?
Okay, so usually the biggest complaint from women in communication is, oh, he's just not listening to me. And really, when women say he's just not listening to me, they're not literally, guys, because men are more literal. They're like, what do you mean? I'm right here. I'm listening to you. What she really means is, I don't feel attuned to you. I don't feel energetically connected to you. I don't feel like you're really hearing what I'm saying. I know you're hearing the words I'm saying, but do you really understand my experience? Are you connected to what I'm sharing with you? So the biggest complaint is men don't listen because women are feeling like men aren't validating their experience. Because typically, and not all men and not all women, but typically men love to solve problems. You guys are really good at it. Women are pretty good at it too. But when women want to connect with their partners, they want to connect emotionally. And so when a man communicates a solution, he's kind of more cognitive versus emotional. So there's this mismatch. She just wants to share about a hard day and just have you say something like, oh, babe, that sounds tough. Versus, well, why don't you just tell your employee to do. And she's like, no, you're not listening. I don't need you to tell me what to do. I know how I might handle it. It might not be how you want. I might come to you tomorrow and say, shit, I should have taken your advice. But it's like, just hear me, just be with me in this moment, just connect with my emotion. That's one of the major causes of, miscommunication between couples, because they're not connecting or attuned to each other. And then the other is, a lot of us are not very clear and assertive in our communication. So, and I used to be really like this. I used to be, in my prior relationships, when I wasn't having my needs met, I was like, oh, how can I be passive aggressive about this? How can I poke at your wounds to piss you off because I'm pissed off? Instead of just saying to you, I felt really hurt last night because I know you were going out for drinks with your client and I know things get late, but I thought that you're going to be home by 1. You didn't come home till 4 a.m. And I woke up with a lot of anxiety, and I was hoping maybe we could talk about that. That's very different than the next day me being like, burning your bacon and, not calling you an Uber in time. And like whatever, we do to get shitty back at our partner, instead of clear, direct communication and owning how we feel. It's like, I'm really hurt because of what happened. It's really meaningful. Like when you check in or you come home and you say, and like, let's talk about this so that we can deal with the problem instead of fight each other. So I think there's those two things. And then of course more. One is the mismatch in communication styles, problem solving versus emotional relating. And the other is the inability for a lot of people, or maybe it's the confidence or permission to be like, this is how I feel and this is what I need, very specifically in positive terms, using this type of language, right? And so couples are missing the point, or they're trying to do what they think is the right thing, but it hasn't really been discussed explicitly up front. So it's like lack of directness and clarity, I think.
That's how you explain clarity is very clear.
Good.
But no, all kidding aside, I can tell you that in my experience, both firsthand with my clients, even with friends, that a woman who's upset and then takes it out in a passive aggressive way is not received well on this end at all. Right. And it's just because in fact, I think it actually deteriorates the trust a little bit. Like Jessica and I, we've had, like I said, we've gone through times, we've been married for 21 years. First 10 years was not the best. Second half has been phenomenal.
Awesome.
But one of the things that she does that I love about her is exactly what you just laid out, because she does not nag. She doesn't do anything. She doesn't do a passive aggressive dig. She's very, very clear. She's like, hey, when this happened, I felt this way. And moving forward, what I think would be truly great would be this. And to me, that's just like, oh my gosh, well, I feel like we just kind of hit the easy button in a way, because like that was so clear.
Yeah.
I understand you're upset. And here's the other thing too, is that when she approaches things like that, there's no part of me that really wants to get defensive. In fact, I want to receive it,
Yeah.
and I want to talk about it,
Yeah.
versus like, oh, I burnt your bacon because you pissed me off.
Yeah.
Like, and I've dated women like that,
Yeah.
where it's
I
just
used
been
to be
passive
like
aggressive.
that. I really did.
Yeah.
Because I get it. Like, I didn't have the EQ at the time, or the understanding how to do it differently. I thought that was normal.
Yeah, I mean, and very, like, so think about what you do, right? You coach men to be better, right? It's no different, and just individuals and relationship dynamics and all these things. Like, if you really think about it, the majority of the population, it's almost like you go to a karate tournament and you've never taken martial arts,
Yeah.
but you're going to wing it on your own instincts and try to defend yourself on instincts and wing it, right? And that's what we do in relationships. It's like, well, I think this feels right now, so I'm just going to do it. Versus like, oh no, wait a second. I know this skill, and this skill, and I know how to, that type of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, there's a framework I teach most of my clients, or we do little variations of it, but it's simply just a framework that like allows them to say, I felt this emotion because of this thing that I observed, or this thing that took place, and I would really like it if you would, or we could, and then say the thing that you really do want. And then you can add one extra little bit that's like, it's really meaningful for me when we have quality time together, because that's how I feel loved by you. So it's like, here's the formula, fill it in, and start using variations of that instead of the natural thing we do. And I think we were really at least I was taught to do this, because I went to a private school for a few years, and I was on the debate team, and I was taught that in order to win an argument, or in order to be good in an argument, you need to win, which means you need to just shit on the opponent until you win. And that's what I kind of went into life thinking, like, well, if I'm fighting with my partner, I'm fighting until I win. And I'll pull out all the stops to try and win this. That's not how it works in the real world. It's just how it works on the debate team, right?
Right.
So
right.
I realized that, like, the arguments would just go like 5 degrees away from what the actual issue was, because now you're just like putting fuel on the fire. I remember I had a old girlfriend in Australia. She said that she used to, when she got mad at her partner, she'd open up the notes in her phone and she'd put down all the shitty things he was doing, so that in the next argument she could be like, you did this, you did this, you did this, you did this, which are all things that like happen, but this is her perspective. And it was like, now I win because I have recorded all the shit that you did. And I was like, oh my fucking God, are you kidding me? We all need help with our communication, because like that's what, and that was a friend on the other side of the world that was doing similar things. So
I think I dated her.
I love her too. Like she's like so much different now than when we were all young in our 20s figuring it out, dating in Australia. Like what I made stupid mistakes too, lots of them. But yeah, communication in a relationship is like, it doesn't need to be difficult. It doesn't have to go on for a long period of time either, because if you're clear and direct and you're honest, you can get through some really difficult shit pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. Can you take me through that framework again? Because and maybe use an example of, and obviously anonymously, but maybe a client in a situation that you took the person through and like, okay, here's the framework and it's fill in the blank. So
yeah. Okay.
Because it was really good.
So it's usually I feel blank because blank. So it could be I feel frustrated and hurt because last Friday when you went out with your girlfriends, I thought, so this is a real example, I thought you were having a girls' night out, but when I found out that all the other girls' boyfriends came, I felt really hurt and frustrated because you never thought to invite me. Something like that, right? So it's the explaining, the feelings and like, you know, the situation. I would really like it if, in a situation like that, you'd reach out to me because I would have loved to have joined. I would really like it if you, or we is the next bit, then fill in the blank, and try and keep it in positive terms. So instead of, I would really like it if you weren't such a bitch and didn't reach out. Okay, no, right? I would really like it if you would, reach out to me in a situation like that, right? And then the other part that I like is, these are my words, so this framework's a little different, but it's really meaningful for me when we connect and have quality time. It's really meaningful for me. Something like that. That was a situation that happened to a client. Another one could be, I feel really hurt and frustrated because, we said we were going to meet for dinner at 7 and you showed up late. I would really like it if you let me know if you're running late. It's really meaningful for me that we show up on time and have really great date night and spend some quality time together. Something like that.
It's really, I love those examples because these are I statements, meaning you own your feelings. Exactly. There was not, I think you gave 4 examples there. And never once did you say, when you do this, you make me feel like this.
Yeah. And I usually coach guys because even in that framework, you're saying, I feel this emotion because this thing happened. And when we're explaining the thing that happened, sometimes we can be like, because you were late or you didn't unload the dishwasher. And as soon as we do the you word, people can sometimes be like, and this framework's not perfect. There is no perfect framework, but that person can be like, defensiveness. Someone pointed a finger at a behavior of mine, right? But at least the focus is more on how it made the person feel versus why you're pissed off at the person kind of thing, right? And so even the language I suggest sometimes is I feel this emotion because I've noticed or I've observed. And I find that language even more non-violent, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So hey, I've noticed that you've been late a few times versus, as the absolutes of always and never get a good response. You always are late. You never empty the dishwasher. You never walk the dog. It's well, immediately the person is going to try to find the few examples where they did do that because they're like, well, that's not a factual statement, right?
That's not a factual statement. In fact, in my notes here, I have my entire history of when that didn't happen.
That's right, exactly. So, fuck you. And that's what happens. And I used to be such an awful fighter too. And I'm still not perfect. My partner's not perfect, but we're so much better now at communicating and we're so much more comfortable doing that. And we even have some tricks now on how to diffuse conflict when it starts to get a little flooded. And that's something that each couple can determine individually on what works for them. But we even got a way to prevent the top from blowing off, or at least get the top back on when things are blowing up a little bit, because that happens.
Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah. So for Andrew and I, because I got big eyes and I'm a little dorky in my facial expressions, when we're fighting or having a disagreement and starting to go in a direction that's not so great, what I observed over the first couple years where our arguments weren't as nice is we would be fighting, we would be looking anywhere else but each other. So we'd be fighting and I'd be like body language, not looking at you, or he'd be over there and I'd be like, ugh, and he'd be looking up here, whatever, because we're just pissed off and we're just but then I would look at him and be like, look at me, babe. Or he'd be like, look at me. And then we'd look at each other and then we would just start laughing because I'm like, oh, you're a stupid little face. He's like, you're a stupid little face. And I'm smiling and I'm like, it's me. Remember, this thing is not me. It's the problem. So when we connect with that eye contact, usually we look at the person we love and we go I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at my feelings or I'm mad at the thing. And so that has been really helpful for us to diffuse stuff. And I don't know what other couples usually, you're not looking at them, because if you're arguing and you're staring at each other the whole time, you guys are intense, right? That can really be helpful for us.
Very good. Yeah. That's cool. Talk to me about tonality. And the reason I asked that is because every example that you gave, I noticed, you and I are talking just normal right now. We have been talking normal. And then as soon as I asked you give me an example of that. Your tone was very deliberate. It was almost calming
Yeah.
at the same time.
Yeah, you're right. So that's, as we know, like 80% of our communication is body language, intonation, and tone. And so that plays such a large role in it. And also neurolinguistic programming teaches you that if you like slow down, calm your voice, that the other person, if they're in a heightened sense, that they'll hear your calming voice and that will help calm them and soothe them too, versus like being really erratic and stressful the whole time. You're like, I feel that. Like, stop it.
I just felt that.
Yeah, totally. Right. So when you're bringing up topics of sensitivity, yeah, check your tone. Because if your words are like perfect, but your tone is still like, fuck you, person's still not going to receive that very well. They're going to be like, I don't really believe you. Right? There's this like intuition, the mistrust, because the tone isn't matching what you're saying to me. So absolutely, like, if you're going to if women are going to approach their partners with something that's frustrating them or what they need or what they want, check yourself before you wreck yourself. So make sure, number one, it's an appropriate time to talk to your partner. Because if you want to address something sensitive in nature and you want them to be attuned and listening to you, then don't call them in the middle of their hectic workday, or don't do it mid video game or when they're like timing the steak on the frying pan. Like, choose your timing, hugely important, right? And then make sure you're doing so when you've thought through what it is that you're frustrated about and what you need, so that when you communicate, you can do so with a tone of compassion and love. Because, yeah, tone, I know very well that my tone and my eye rolls are like daggers for people.
You do the eye roll?
Oh, yeah. So that's contempt, right? Yeah. Rolling your eye at your partner, like, I thought, like, it's basically me saying, I don't fucking care what you're saying, just through my eyes. So I don't eye roll anymore, I don't think. I'll have to ask Andrew if I've ever eye rolled recently. But I'm very conscious of that as well, because that's just one bit of body language that is saying something without words, right?
I think especially, I mean, I don't want to speak for women because I know for a woman too, if a man eye rolls at you, it's demeaning, right? But like for a guy, like firsthand, like when I've dated people who've rolled their eyes, I'm like, damn, like not only are we disagreeing, but now I feel completely disrespected.
Totally, exactly.
Right. Which puts the feeling of disconnect on a whole new level.
Well, that's exactly what it is. Eye rolling at someone is disrespect. I believe that my opinions, my words, my thoughts, my stature in life is of more value than yours. That's what it is. Contempt is, as you know from the Gottman Institute, is the #1 predictor of marital divorce. So if you got contempt in your relationship, you're in trouble, right? And again, that goes back to our prior conversation of how do you avoid getting there? It's like, you got to focus on your partner's good qualities.
Yeah. What we focus on grows. That's true.
Yeah.
What about the approach? So like, for instance, you and I actually approach conflict resolution very similar. So I was taught just something a little different. It's called the experience cube. We were taught that skill by Clear Leadership, that company, which is observations, thoughts, feelings, and wants. Okay. Which is very similar to what you just laid out. One thing I've noticed too that, and it's something that most coaches and I think relationships, we don't talk about it, but it's the approach. So like if I go to Jessica and be like, can I talk to you about something? Like immediately like, what? Right?
Oh my gosh.
Or it's like, hey, can we talk later? She'd be like, oh my God, don't do that to me.
I agree with you.
Now I'm just going to agonize all over it.
My partner said that to me in the beginning of a relationship. And he said he learned it from his past. He had some trauma around it. He goes, if you want to talk to me about something, talk to me, like when you want to talk about it is when we're going to talk about it. If you tell me on Friday in a text that you want to talk to me about something and Monday, he's like, you will have ruined my weekend, because all I'm going to think about is that you're dumping me, that you hate me, that you've cheated on me. He's like, don't do that to me. So it's like, approach, like I said, timing. Pick the timing. Don't be like, yeah, especially in the tone too. You could be like, hey babe, do you want to talk about the timing for dinner later? Okay. Oh, sure. Okay. I already know what this is about. But if it's like inconclusive or like, let's talk about that thing, That's not nice for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
So how do
how does
you,
your approach work? Like, what's the
my
yeah?
approach?
What do you do then?
So like, and I've noticed this works fantastic with the dynamics for Jessica and and like, and when I've shared this with other clients, it works well. So I will, if I need to talk to her about something, you know, I will make sure that I'm going to drop it on her when we have the time and the energy in the room to talk about it. So what I usually do is say, hey, do you have a minute? Or, hey, can we talk about something? I don't do that. I just simply go in and say, so I've noticed, you know, I'd like to share something with you, and I've noticed a few things. And here are the things that I've noticed. I've noticed that boom, 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 right? And the story I'm telling, I'll give you a great example. This is probably TMI, but I think you and I are already there.
Yeah.
So Jess and I, you know, our sex life is great, no complaints. And then it was, I don't know, about a year and a half ago, we were only having sex like once a month. It was really weird. And we normally do it a couple times a week. And it's really uncommon for us. And we're literally on the exact same page with like, when we have sex more often, we're more connected. And when we're more connected, we talk better, we communicate better, we're better parents, we're less irritable, everything is better. And so the observation was, I was like, you know, I've noticed over the past 3 months that we've only had sex like once a month for the past 3 months. And that's an observation that I agree upon, and I know she will. It's not accusatory. It actually is what it is. Like, and that's the filter I run things through first. Like, is this an opinion of mine?
Yeah.
Or is it an actual observation that if I said it out loud, she'd be like, yeah, I know. Right. So that is the observation we have to agree upon the observation almost in a way. And then the second step is the thought, right? And I usually say something along the lines of, the story I'm telling myself is we're probably like super tired. Or we're in a season where we're just overwhelmed with all the kids' activities, and by the time we get to bed, we probably just have no energy. So that's like the thought, right? And when I have those thoughts, I feel concerned, right? And then I get to the want, because what I truly want is to be connected to you.
Yeah.
And I know when we're having sex often, you feel connected to me, I feel connected to you. We're less stressed, we communicate more, we're better parents. That's what I truly want. And normally when I approach it like that, versus in the past, I'd be like, why aren't we having sex?
Yeah.
Are you bored? Like, what's happening? Like, stuff like that. Is it my name?
It's your name.
It's my name.
Oh, Larry.
Oh my God. But no, like that's how I approach it. But that is something that personally I've struggled with, is like, when do I know this is the ideal time? And also when I start to say whatever it is I'm going to say, I want to make sure it lands like, well, not because I don't want to fight, right? I'd rather dance than fight. So talk to me a little bit about how you coach men and give advice on the approach when it comes to conflict.
Yeah, so I do focus on a little bit of the timing thing. And so, you know, as we get to know our partners and we can observe their behavior, we get a general sense of when someone is like really quite stressed out. Like, I have a client right now that I'm just finishing with. He's had multiple conversations with his wife, but she's also in the process of like doing a huge, big work project. So, you know, when she's in the middle of that, it's not going to be a good time. So it's like, when do you guys usually in your day have a little bit of downtime together and start to get a general sense of like, okay, this could be a good time to approach. And honestly, there is a little trial and error too, because, you know, we don't always know that our partner's in the exact right headspace, so they don't have something else on their mind, but we try and then we learn as we go. So, you know, usually when the distractions are at a minimum and everyone's, you know, not in the middle of some complex task, is usually a good time to try, right? And that typically tends to be, I've noticed, more in like the early evening for people, not before the big work day, so that you're got a time limitation either, because you're like, let's hopefully get all this hashed out in 20 minutes before you need to leave for work. That's not a good time either. So it's usually when, you know, most of the things are done for the day and you might be winding down, or just before you start making dinner, or you know, when you're sitting down to watch a movie or read a book or something, is usually the timing that I would advise, right? But then, you know, it works different for different couples. So sometimes, you know, guys have been like, well, we got like this long road trip coming up, and I'm like, if it doesn't go well, it's going to be a really shitty road trip. So maybe wait till the like
That's so
last bit of
true.
the road trip or something. I don't know. Like, you know, arguments happen and they shouldn't be like the worst thing in the world, because if we can learn from them, we can repair them, and then it's okay to have them, right? So, but you learn your partner and then you trial and error a little bit. So I don't particularly tell them what the best time is going to be for them, but I do get them to think, when would they like to be approached, and work from that too.
That, I'd shake my head at some of these questions, because it's like, well, if you don't know, just ask.
Yes,
Just like ask, right?
that one, of course, that one too.
Right?
When's a good time?
When would be the best time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the future,
it's
not like, hey, when can you chat? Like, hey,
Yeah.
when is a good time for us to talk about these things? And also
Yeah.
the receptivity of your partner in that question itself is very insightful. Because if they go like, I don't know, then it's like, hold on, you need to know,
Yeah.
because this stuff is important, right?
You want to know something so funny? So the same story I was telling you about like our sex life and all that, out of that conversation, we actually both agreed. We're like, she's like, well, I don't really like doing it at night. I'm exhausted. I'm like, God bless. I actually don't like it, do it either. She's like, well, what if we just do it during the day? Take all the pressure off at night. Yeah. We just go to bed. Like, but let's have like some afternoon delight.
Yeah.
You work from home.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's freaking brilliant. Like, let's just,
right.
right. Exactly. Well, the kids are home now, but no, the other thing too, I really like, so like, for instance, one of our rules of engagement when it comes to like, conflict resolution is neither one of us are good, like at night, like, especially if the kids go to bed. Like, it's almost like, 4 boys, it's like, and everything we have going on, it's like, man, that is not the time necessarily, but we find like morning coffee is perfect for us. Like, cause that's like you're you're rested. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, it's a morning time. You already kind of feel connected. It's quiet. So like that. And we agreed, like, hey, if we're going to have conflict resolution, we sit on our deck, we have a glass of wine, or we have morning coffee, or we go for a walk. Another one is a walk.
Yeah. Yeah. Even just like the movement and the mindfulness, and even sometimes just being next to your partner, and not, like I said, like with Andrew and I, we sometimes need the eye contact, but the movement can put you both in sync, right? There's the mirroring aspect of NLP. So if you're like walking at a similar pace, you're both having the same sensations, like that puts you in a similar footing to be having that discussion. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. Kimberly, and do you go by Kim or Kimberly? Both. Okay. Yeah. I just want to make sure we have the right name. So if men want to find you, like, where's the best place for them to connect with you?
Well, of course, they want to just like get a sense of my style. Go to my Instagram at Kimberly Nina Hill, or go check out my website, KimberlyNinaHill.com. You can learn a little of my story there. You can read some testimonials, of course. And, the best thing, of course, is if you want to really understand me and coaching and get insight on what's going on in your life, then book that complimentary consultation, because I do still, show up and speak one-on-one with individuals that want to know if coaching is the right fit or if I'm the right fit. So those are some avenues. Obviously, I did start a YouTube channel, and they can head over there too, but I've just put it on pause for a little bit. Oh my goodness gracious.
That's you.
Yes, it was me.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello?
I told that individual I would not be free until around 2:30. We're coming up to that time. So what did that do to our recording? Do we just...
Oh, we're fine.
Okay.
I don't edit a whole lot of this podcast because fatherhood is imperfect. So if I try to have like a totally, like, I can't even tell you, like, 1,200 episodes, how many times I've been bombed with my kids.
Don't even edit that.
Happens.
It's just that's my aunt calling to chat about things that are going on in my life. But let me put it on do not disturb, because that came right through the laptop and it was super loud. But nonetheless,
that's okay.
You can check me out on YouTube too. I am putting that on hold for a little bit. I'll be back up there in a little while. But those are some of the places to go check me out. Yeah.
Got it. Awesome. Well, guys, not to worry. We are going to have all the links in the show notes for Kimberly. Obviously, she came on today, gave us some fantastic advice for how we can navigate relationships better, and conflict resolution, and our approach and our tonality, and all these incredible things that really help us move the needle. Don't forget, guys, what we focus on expands, what we focus on grows. Focus on the good things in your relationship, and obviously use some of the advice that Kimberly gave us today, which was gold. You can head on over to thedadedge.com/468 for this show. Again, thedadedge.com/468. We'll have all of Kimberly's social media handles as well as her website. Kimberly, thank you so much for coming on today. This was awesome.
It was fun hanging out. Really nice part of my day, and got a little break here and take my dog for a pee and then get back on some coaching calls. So
there you go.
Thank you.
There you go. You bet. Talk to you soon.